episode 320 of 20 Minute Tims. It's Halloween. I'm your host Jamie. I'm joined by Stephen.
That was truly chilling.
And Melly.
Yes.
So spooky stuff. Melly, were you going to dress up this Halloween?
No.
No, Stephen, did you feel in any way inclined to dress up for Halloween?
Well, we had the idea to come in fancy dress for today, but sadly that idea came in the green room 30 seconds before we turned the mics on, and it was too late logistically.
I was going to get a little black jacket, a little zip up, a pair of tracksuit trousers, a pair of shoes, and a badge that says DM sewn onto it, and come dressed as a little weasel. Because that's what David Martindale is.
Busy weekend for him, the haunted pumpkin, David Martindale. Yeah,
he does look like someone's carved a face into a turnip.
Yeah. Well, I haven't watched Sports Scene as well since the game at the weekend. Everyone was getting into the Halloween spirit. You had David Martindale dressed as a pumpkin. You had Kenny Miller, Ghostface Miller,
yeah.
Looking terrifying as always. Everyone was getting into the spirit.
And Stephen Thompson looking like someone spilt toxic ooze on a ventriloquist puppet and it came to life. Melly, all jokes aside, we managed to crush the Livi Hoodoo.
Yeah, it seems like we've had a few horror shows over the years over there. And
so good.
Finally put it to bed. I think last season we seen that one sort of towards the end of the season, like, right, that's it, we've got the victory here. This season, it just looked like a formality, a good victory for Celtic, where the only thing we were really worried about was before the game, thinking this park and the usual thing, the pitch, before we go on any further, still a disgrace, still an absolute midden, but
freshly ironed on for the game.
Didn't make a difference to Celtic. I know Livi will be cursing that bloody rain because it meant the
they
pitch
wanted
get
that
a bit
bone
of
dry,
moisture,
didn't they?
Yeah, we talk about the Ammanville Hoodoo quite a lot, but see, when you actually look at it, it doesn't make for very good reading at all, does it? It's grim stuff when you look back at the last several years, since 2018, since they came up, hardly won there. They did win the last time. Before this game, Celtic did win the last one. That was the one where Maida scored and James Forrest, I think, as well. So there was that. So this wasn't the game that actually broke the hoodoo, but it was the one that probably ended it once and for all. That's 2 in a row they've won there. But you look back at the recent record there, it is dismal, absolutely terrible. And we would have been covering every second of it along the way, but horrible results there.
Remember the snow one with Lennon at the end? He did that mad stupid face. And, was it 2-0 Celtic? Then the snow came down, like, cancel this game, please, man. This is horrendous.
It was David Martindale's very, very proud of the way his team plays, doesn't he? He's always does one or two things. He always gives his own team enormous credit, but kind of low key, kind of like as if there's a hint of we should have definitely beat Celtic. And then he is always at great pains to give us almost no credit.
Aye, well, he seemed quite pissed off after the game. Actually, he seemed quite annoyed with the result.
He couldn't do his boys a favour, could he?
He was talking about getting the pressing triggers wrong and all that kind of thing. He stopped just short of blaming his keeper for that Kyogo rocket in the first few minutes as well. Lunatic.
He didn't say Kyogo does what Kyogo does.
No, he didn't
grace us with
only
that.
Reserves that for his favourites. But one thing, I mean, he was ranting after the game as well about the difference in budgets and the resources difference between the two clubs and all that, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, it's factually accurate.
If that's a problem, get a better job.
He knows how to.
Simple.
He knows how to. Yeah. There's no stranger.
Knows how to turn that coin.
Yeah, he knows how to make up economic deficits. But I don't have a problem with him talking about that because it is a factor. He can only do so much with the team he's got. But what I did have an issue with was how he said it. He said that he has heard, quote, the old firm talking about the difference between the budgets in Scotland and the Champions League, about how teams can't compete in the Champions League because of the superior budgets, where they've got 4 or 5 times the amount of money we have, whereas you look at Livingston versus Celtic and it's closer to 40 times or something like that what the money we've got than they have. The old firm though, because no, you haven't, David, you haven't heard that. What you've heard, who you've heard saying that is Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. That's who you've heard saying that. And it's honestly just another example of the pains that people go to avoid criticising one or the other in this country, even if it makes no logical sense whatsoever. You need to drag the other side into it.
And without giving his point more credit than it deserves, that doesn't make any sense either. It's not a simple maths equation. It's not quite simply, they went out and paid 40 times and we can't pay 40 times. The fact is, Livingston have got a team there, and Martindale has built the team up, and they've got a very, very small budget. In fact, there is one thing that Livingston and Celtic both have in common: they both don't have a budget for Lee Griffiths. They both don't have any available funds for Lee Griffiths, which was mentioned midweek. But at the end of the day, Martindale's one of these managers that we were talking about before. The credit for me only extends so far, right? You come in at the league and you stay there and you stay and you sting about and you hang about, and we all kind of want them to drop out the league, and they show no signs of going anywhere. But at some point, he's got to go, look, I'm a football manager. I'm going to try and play some football here.
Yeah, these guys are more managers than football managers for me. It's no the way I would ever dream of playing. And it was summed up just when Livingston did a pass to the fullback and launched up to nowhere. A guy...
It's Snoobly, that's his name.
No, a guy either in front or behind it. I just heard him say, turn round to his mate and go, imagine having a season ticket at Livi, man.
Yeah.
And that's what it was summed up. Like, I think, Stephen, we were talking about it last week on the Breakfast of Champions, how they're 11th for possession, 11th for goal, expected goals.
On the what?
Possession.
On the Breakfast of Champions. It's good you should mention that. Patreon.com/20minute-Tims. The podcast you heard Melly reference there was the Breakfast of Champions podcast. It's a midweek podcast that we drop to catch up on all the Celtic news we don't get here. Patreon.com/20minute-Tims. Carry on.
Yeah, I didn't have much to say after that, but just look, Livingston are terrible to watch, aren't they? And this is it's always been that physical side that maybe gets Celtic, and Celtic didn't show any signs of that because we played our football, and when things got tough for us, our big players were there, like Carter Vickers and Jens and all that. And like Newbley gave Rangers problems last week, but he didn't get a sniff against Celtic.
There was a brilliant graphic that appeared during the broadcast on Sky Sports, maybe about just a few minutes into the game, where it was Celtic had played 42 passes and Livingston had 2.
One of them was kick-off problem.
2 passes, and that's graphic worthy.
We spoke on the live build-up, which is another thing we do on Patreon. We spoke in the live build-up about how these game plans are fine. The way Livingston want to approach the game in the 90 minutes, in the main, if you're trying to get a draw, you're trying to get a result, these game plans are fine. Until we score an early goal. And that's basically what happened. Yeah,
well, that's the problem with these teams. And if you're really only training all week for one game plan, and it's to go long to your big man up top and all that, and to try and kind of grind Celtic down, try and tire them out and all that, once you go that one goal down, you're really kind of running around looking for what plan B could possibly be now. So do they open up? Do they try more expansive football? Do they try and drag Celtic in? Do they try and hit them on the counter? Not really, was the answer. Really, it was a total piece of piss, to be honest, that game. To be quite blunt about it, Celtic just walked over the top of them, and I don't think it's a coincidence that it was, it's in part down to that early goal, because I can't really see any way back for a team like Livingston once that happens. In the recent past, Livingston have been good at putting Celtic under real pressure, being physical with them. You could go back to the infamous Lyndon Dykes days versus Julian and all that. And that's kind of the thing. But once they go a goal down, I don't see what else they've got in the bank for us.
Trying to think, we've got 4 losses Ange Postecoglou's had. They've all been apart from the Hearts game, they've all been 0 in the league. But if Celtic get the first goal, they don't lose a game.
No,
they don't lose a game. And like Kyogo, he scored the first league goal in 5 or 6 times this season. When Celtic go off to a fly like that, it calms it down. That was a great goal. It was Ralston inside, played it to Greg Taylor, who played it through. You don't see many teams scoring like that with their 2 fullbacks inside and playing it in. It was two passes that took multiple players out of the game, and Kyogo's through and go on a smashing finish. Martindale somehow blaming his keeper, but it flashed past him in a second.
Silly.
And when Celtic get in front, you think, right, we'll get another goal or we'll be fine in this game. But with this one, I don't want to say worry, but just that towards the end of the first half, it got a wee bit as if the game was sort of petering out. And it's only because it's at this stadium I start to think, if they get back into the game. But as soon as the second half kicked off, Celtic were fine. But it's just the way Livingston play, you're always thinking, right, it could be a floated ball in or anything like that. But the way Celtic played is we got the ball down and played it. And when we're doing that to them, they can't do it. And as soon as they got the ball out to their fullback, Celtic closed them down and pressed them. So we stopped it at the supply. That's what they do. Shell it out to the fullback and they shell it up and hope for the best. And Celtic cut off that supply. And you can see why Kyogo started the game.
I don't know what exactly defines an early goal. I don't know what the parameters are for it. Kind of like
First 15 minutes.
15 minutes. I'm glad you said that because that's what I looked into. And that is so glad you didn't say like 20 and I've nothing for you. But that's the 10th time Kyogo has scored a goal for Celtic, or the opening goal inside the first 15 minutes since he's been here, and he's probably got about 30 odd goals for Celtic, so about half of them have come, or about a third of them have come in the first 15 minutes. So he is a guy who gets these early goals.
Can you name all the matches, please?
No, I cannot. But an early goal, there is no there's no definition on it. It's like anything after about the 85th minute gets termed as like a last minute goal as well. So I'm not really sure what an early goal is, but if it's the first 15 minutes, Kyogo's good at them.
Just a minute, like I was going to talk about the difference between the two strikers, because Kyogo and Nubly couldn't be more different,
No.
in terms of their style and their stature and all that
Technically
sort of
the same job description as
stuff.
well, isn't it?
It's the same job, employed to do the same job, but two completely different strikers. I'm not going to slag Nubly off. Obviously, the guy's made a career for himself and he's pitched up at Livingston, but there was a passage of play in the game where one of the fullbacks shelled it up to Nubly. He got about 2 touches. Carter Vickers comes close to him and Nubly just falls over looking for the free kick, and Randy Walker goes, fantastic bit of play there by Nubly. He's been a real danger all day. And I'm like, what game are you watching, Randy Walker?
Did you say Randy Walker?
I
thought I scanned that for a second there. I was like, is that a Halloween pun? But no, it's not, isn't it? It's just upsetting.
Oh,
really.
Andy Walker, that is scary enough. But the battle between Nubly and Carter Vickers, that was a war at times out there.
Yeah, I think once he knocked Carter Vickers over, and I was like, oh, I've never seen this before. This was during the week. We've seen Mudryk fly past Carter Vickers, and then we've seen Nubly knock him off the ball. So bomb scare now, isn't he?
Fraud.
He got booked as well, but I don't think he was ever in any danger. It's the one where Nubly, he tries to go over to Jens to avoid Carter Vickers, but Celtic 2 defenders just played it well. One goes and wins the header, the other covers behind, and they switch over. You can do this all day and say, like, put on a big striker to rough up 2 Celtic centre halves. Like, they eat that up for breakfast, man. They eat that up for breakfast. If top quality defenders don't go up against big players all the time, it's something the bread and butter for them. And look, it's the only option Livingston had. And when you take that away, they really have nothing. Celtic,
I mean, he's not even. I've had a look there just while you were talking. The top goal scorers. Nubly's not even on the list, and the list begins that people have scored 2 goals.
I think it'll get 3 goals for Livingston overall.
So I mean, he's obviously maybe there to fulfil another function, but as Melly saying, Stephen, these teams, they're starting to see teams throw everything, including the kitchen sink, sometimes at Celtic, and the defence just cope with it.
Literally throwing the kitchen sink, as Jamie Redknapp may have said. Yeah. Okay, it was something of a nuisance. If you're going to give him any credit at all, it was visible on the pitch, and it's not always the case with strikers that play against Celtic. It was something to look after. It was something to take note of. But it was described by Randy Walker, as a constant threat. To be honest, that's the one thing he wasn't, a threat. He wasn't a goal threat or anything like that. He was just a bit of a nuisance. There was one time, Melly's already described, Bard's Carter Vickers off the ball in a coming together of 2 big men and all that.
Yeah.
But he also skinned Jens just once. And that's it. I'm kind of reaching here. He did okay, to be honest. He's a decent enough player, a bit of a handful, all those old cliches about big strikers, but I didn't feel under threat at any point during the game.
Just, you mentioned Jens, and this week will be linked to Yuki Kobayashi, Japanese defender, and I was kind of looking at the Jens thing midweek and in the Shakhtar game and all over this season. I know we don't have Jens forever, he's alone, and I think we've got an option in there. Do you think this would you be inclined to keep him? Do you think there's better options out there for Celtic, and do you think Kobayashi's been identified as perhaps the better option?
It's unclear right now. He is a left-footed centre-half, so that would give Celtic a better balance. But
Kobayashi is.
Yeah. So it would give us a better balance. It is difficult to find these guys. As soon as you hear Japanese centre-half, maybe you think, oh no, but he is 6'2", I think he is. But I don't know, because Jens, it's still early days. We're just going into November. I'd be inclined to see out the season with him and see how he gets on. But look, early signs are, he's decent. Is he Carter Vickers level? No. Are Celtic going to be able to find another Carter Vickers? I doubt that. So it's about finding guys that complement each other. I think he is decent. I think he does play the ball out better, but I think Starfelt's possibly a better defender. But trying to get a mix of the two. You get Carter Vickers, and they're rare.
I think Stephen, the thing about the Celtic centre halves is there's very clear sort of degradation between them. So you've definitely got Carter Vickers, who's definitely the best, and then Starfelt is definitely the second best, and then Jens is definitely the third best, and Welsh is definitely the fourth best. It's pretty clear to me that's the order, and I don't think people would really argue with that much.
Yeah, but with the arrival,
and if they did, they'd be wrong.
Yeah, with the imminent, supposedly, reportedly arrival of Kobayashi, it'd be interesting to see how the squad dynamic shapes up after that, because Jens is only on loan. At that point, you're looking at it probably thinking, is there any sense in taking him on permanently? I don't know. Despite what he's done, and he's been okay. He's been all right for Celtic. He's been pretty decent. I would suggest. No more than that. I don't want to get carried away. I think he's been all right. But then if you can get this guy in who's a permanent signing, maybe not. Stephen Welsh is on a fairly long contract. So despite the fact not everyone really rates him all that highly, and seems to think he's worth having around. He's got a long-term contract. Worried about Starfelt though, I have to say. Barely played this season, and his absence hasn't been felt all that strongly, other than the fact that he didn't really get to play in the in fact, they didn't get to play in the Champions League at all, which was a bit of a shame. But I'm starting to get a bit concerned that he missed the whole summer. I think he got injured on international duty, came off the bench and scored, and has basically been injured ever since. So I think he's maybe played 3-4 games at the max this season. So I'm a bit concerned about that. But yeah, the bringing in of Kobayashi seems promising, but five Japanese players, Ange, that's insane. That's insane.
Well, it's not so it's not insane just now, right? But what I do think about it is this is very well. It kind of speaks to the fact that maybe Ange is here for a bit longer than maybe we think, because obviously these guys are professional footballers. They've worked under different and many managers, but these guys seem to be very specific to the way Ange wants to play. They seem to really understand the way he wants to play, and I don't think if they were coming over to play for Ange Postecoglou, they would, you think, be seeking assurances about how long he's going to be here, you know?
Yeah, so you don't end up in Gary Hooper's shoes.
Basically,
Cyprus and Daddy's left after a couple of weeks. That's what. Pray for Gary Hooper. What a shame that is.
I know he's good, and Adam Matthews as well.
Oh, Adam Matthews, yeah.
Both of them out at Ammonia.
At least he's got a chance of getting another club. Adam Matthews, who is going to sign Gary Hooper unless Neil Lennon rocks up at Dundee or something like that.
I think it's possibly looking long term. Celtic are at a point now where, Champions League didn't quite go to plan, but it's not as if, this is our 4 centre halves, this is what we do. You need to keep striving to improve everywhere, and if getting this guy in's Celtic looking to improve, I'm all for it. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a massive transfer fee. The guy's at a good age. It's not really too big a risk, is it? Because we have got good centre half. We're not crying out for them, unlike team across the river. So Celtic are in a very good position, and to see us go out and strengthen on that, it's still unsettling for me. This isn't the Celtic I'm used to.
No, we seem to be putting things into gear here, and I wonder if we'll see any outs. I know Degucci's not really played a lot of football, and you suspect he might be looking for an out. Let's just talk about how amazing, wonderful, beautiful and brilliant Greg Taylor's been ever since he turned on those Instagram comments. Greg, we love you. We've been saying it for weeks. We spotted it. I'm not giving ourselves the credit here, right? But I'm pretty sure that all of us three spotted the Greg Taylor upward curve pretty early on. You know, it started towards the tail end of last season. We've been really banging that Greg Taylor drum this season.
You're saying check the record, bud? Check
the record, bud. It's been us. And someone actually tweeted us and went, Greg Taylor's been excellent since 20 Minute Tim's been banging the drum about him. The boy's on fire. I saw was it Joe Hart or one of his teammates on Instagram, I forget now, called him Mr. Dependable, and he's just 7 and 8s every single week.
Yeah, he's been sensational. Greg Oliver Andrew Taylor, to give him his full name.
Right.
Do the initials and you'll get it.
Oh right, I got it there. Yeah. Yes.
So I think he's been sensational, and look, see if it was right now. You say he's been Celtic's best player this season. Probably he's up for Player of the Year. He's been an utter sensation. I can't think of any other word, because there's Tony Ralston last season, a complete turnaround and changed all the fans, but I think Greg Taylor had further to go than Tony Ralston, and he's done it. Every time he's on the pitch, he looks great. Even coming on last week against Hearts, brilliant. Mr. Dependable, but now he's coming up with the goods. That was an assist for Kyogo, a goal again this week. He had another shot which was unlucky as well. He's getting himself into attacking positions as well, so he's the all-round fullback now, and I seen him play for Scotland, and he had a different role as well. He was good at that as well. So you're just looking at the guy going, there's levels to this, and we all, myself included, said, look, maybe in the summer we can look to improve on Greg Taylor. You're going to be going very, very far to find somebody to improve on him.
Welcome to the party, everyone.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Greg Taylor party. See if you, at this point, you haven't joined in the festivities on Greg Taylor. You're basically just being stubborn. You're standing out in the back garden crying.
You're missing it.
Aye,
Such a
100%.
likeable guy as well, isn't he?
Oh, definitely. And I think the only criticism I see now thrown at him online is now that, but we need better for Europe. And I'm just like,
We're the best player
okay then.
I know. Aye.
Okay, we need better for Europe. You could say that about every single player we've had for the last 50 years. Henrik Larsson, but Brazilian Ronaldo's doing about the same thing. Could probably be doing with him. I think that it's mental to look at a player through that lens to say, we need better for Europe, because none of the team is ready-made Champions League quality. We've had this discussion before, so I think that's the death throes of the argument against Greg Taylor now, saying that we need better for Europe.
You go looking for these comments and all, don't you?
That's his hobby. Stephen has two hobbies. He goes on the internet and finds people to disagree with, and he also carries a bit of red marker and corrects graffiti on the walls. He corrects grammatical errors and people's graffiti on the walls with a red Sharpie.
Graffiti on the wall that says we're magic. They've missed out the apostrophe.
Dot the eyes.
Greg Taylor's only 25.
Yeah.
This is another thing. He's turning 25 on the 5th of November, so he's turning 25 next week. Happy birthday, Greg.
We're going to have a special podcast for the occasion.
Special birthday podcast.
What's your cut-off for young players? I know you don't like this young player, so what's your cut-off?
Oh, he's not young. He's not young, but
He'll get called young.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know what, funnily enough, actually, just on that point, Greg Taylor is someone who has never really had the benefit of the young tag. That does get thrown about quite a lot, but the whole time he was at Celtic, when did he sign for Celtic?
Lennon signed him, so when Kieran Tierney left.
So 3 years ago or something? So he was 20?
This is his fourth season.
So he was 21 when he signed for Celtic, and I honestly can't remember anyone really saying, he's still young, Greg Taylor. I don't think he's ever been given that benefit of the doubt. He's just kind of signed with the preconception that he wasn't really good enough.
A year younger than Bernabeu when he signs.
Yeah, it's sort of signed with the preconception he's not good enough. And when you look at him, you go, right, you've got a 25-year-old full-back who's playing under Ange Postecoglou in a completely different role. It took him 18 months to get used to his new role, or 6 months rather, under Ange. Now he's blossoming into this absolutely sensational fullback.
Well, obviously completely different circumstances for each of these examples, but if he's 25 this year, then if he's 25 in 2022, so are Hatate and Dyson Maeda. They're both 25 in the next few weeks as well. If Dyson Maeda hasn't already just turned 25, round about the same age. And look at the difference of perceptions in all of those guys.
Yeah.
Obviously, Greg Taylor's played in Scotland his whole career, so it's very different for him. But Dyson Maeda is the guy who is criticised because he doesn't seem to have the requisite technical ability. Rio Hatate is the guy who's defended because he is trying to make things happen, but can often play passes, hits passes astray. But right there in the middle is Greg Taylor, who's about the same age as him, and he's playing almost like flawlessly basically every single week. So it just shows you the difference, the different way we can look at players who are ostensibly exactly the same age, and again, very different circumstances. But Greg Taylor deserves credit for the way he's just gone about his business this season. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Some finish as well, man.
It was a good finish,
the first one, he hit it high, then Greg thought, no, hit this one low, and their keeper, I think that was his debut, wasn't it? So like pepper him a couple of shots, but I don't think it was up to anything to do with the keeper either. It was flashed right at him through his legs before he even knew it hit him. It was a smashing hit, and then when he's running off celebrating, I think he had a wee, that pitch, no knee slides today. So it was great to see him scoring. Like you're looking at Greg Taylor, like, what can you improve on? And you're like, scoring.
I was just about to say that. I said, since we're talking about Greg, this is like his report card. It's PTA season here. I was like, what if there's anything you could add to Greg Taylor's game? And at the moment, there's really not an awful lot. I mean, you can't say be taller.
That'll be the next one. Now that I've said that about the Champions League, it'll be that he's not tall enough.
Greg Taylor's a short king, and he's making moves at left back, and you can't really ask for any more.
Intelligent as well, because you've already just talked about his celebration there. Opted out of the knee slide on the green concrete, basically green concrete with sand tossed across it. But he also looked as if he was going to run it into the crowd for a brief second, and then he thought no, and then just stopped short of it. Everybody was reaching out to get him and like had their cameras out and all that kind of thing. But he stopped and just went back and celebrated with players in case any of the clean shirts decide to book him for it. Exactly.
Well, the referees are really on the ball at the moment. And I was reading, I think it was John Campbell from The Athletic. highly paid, these guys at The Athletic, the best in sports journalism, apparently, The Athletic. However, he did spot something that I think was very key, and his warning to referees was he needs to change a handball rule because that's twice in 2 weeks Celtic players have chipped the ball onto someone's hand. What in the Ronaldinho do you think we're attempting here?
Aye.
That's not what Celtic players are doing. What they're doing is trying to cross the ball and it's hitting people's hands.
If they're that good, surely they just shoot.
Yeah,
Because they'd be able to bend it round players.
but the point is, I think he's referring to the one last week, right? Which was definitely handball.
Yeah.
Right? That was definitely a handball that got missed. This week, I'm not so sure, but it's what it was it chipped onto the player's hand, like as if some sort
It's
of
a full-scale cross.
I know.
We've got a number of wingers in this team who are very good but can't find heads in the box but can find hands deliberately each and every time. That's quite a remarkable skill set, that is.
That was the saddest thing I'd ever seen written on Twitter. Really, really sad, man. It's like it's funny. These guys somebody pulled up a tweet. I think it was a Celtic wiki. It was like a week or 24 hours past. He's talking about handball rule that benefited Rangers. Then he's talking about complaining about the handball rule because it didn't benefit Celtic. You're just like, can you just? I know it's Halloween, right? But keep the mask on. Don't let the masks. Why does the mask slip? Sitting at home, furious about.
Buy one of those non-slip masks you can get as well.
We got another penalty against Livi and up steps Giacomakis, another player I've been particularly banging the drum for because I say every time he plays he scores, but a year to the day, Melly, that he missed a penalty against Livingston. He missed another penalty against Livingston.
Yeah, no, he's come a long way in that year.
He really has. He really has.
That was an absolute shocker last minute. We were getting out of jail with that penalty and he missed it. It was a shocker. He hadn't really played too much then, and then we barely seen him up till January after that, and then he went on great form. But stepping up, it was one of those like just didn't look right the way he caught it and all that. Hit the outside of the post, and I think with the way the match played out, there was a lot of chat about Giacomakis not starting, and I thought, to be honest, he'd start just because we know what we're up against with Livingston. They're going to be physical, but you've seen with Kyogo's goal and the way Livingston couldn't really handle his runs, and he dropped off quite a lot in this game, I noticed, so they didn't know whether to go or stay with him, and created space for others. But you see him with not quite the penalty, but some of Giacomakis' play, you can see why he didn't start. The touch, he had a good turn at one point and then he took another touch and completely lost the ball. What you need in these games is people that can play on that park, like Aaron Moy when he comes in. Giacomakis didn't quite look up to it. Penalty miss, it wasn't a great penalty, but we're 2-0 up, but you can write it off.
Well, that's a good point on Giacomakis. The various debates over him and Kyogo. I think Livingston is a very specific case because what they did against Rangers was basically just invited Rangers to cross and cross and cross and cross. So if we had done that, if we had gone for the, on the surface of things, a greater physical presence, which it's not to be discounted entirely, but if we had done that, I think Livingston would have thanked us for it. Oh, thanks Celtic for our favourite food, and just basically look to clear everything out of the box all day. And playing Kyogo, Greg Taylor puts him through, opens the scoring after a handful of minutes or so. It's a completely different game than we are shelling crosses into the box trying to find Giacomakis.
Well, that's what Livingston. That's as you say. That's what Livingston wanted.
Yeah, definitely.
And what Ange did was manage to find a better way to play and sort of played out of Livingston's hands.
Yeah, because there was a lot of times where Celtic got the ball out wide, but instead of firing it across, we worked it back across the box and tried to find the openings. And I love Giacomakis, I think we all do, but
I love him the most.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not a competition, but if it was, you would win.
I would do.
When he's playing Celtic, when they do find themselves in a wee slight bit of trouble, we tend to go along to him, and doing that against Livingston, it's just going to play into their hands. So the way we passed the ball about on that pitch was great, to be honest, because I've seen so many, we don't see good games on that, but that was a very confident, measured performance from Celtic where we never looked in any danger. That's difficult to do in that pitch because it will bounce up, you will second guess your touch and all that, but Celtic just kept the ball down and played their game and looked like it was a breeze, a walk in the park for us.
And then Jota comes back.
Oh, yes.
Anything to say?
No, I lovely to see him. Absolutely brilliant. We've really missed him. I think it was only 3 weeks he was out for, but it felt like more because he just brings so much to this team. He's an absolutely tremendous player. We've got so many wingers. We've got this armoury of wingers, but they've all got their different assets and all that. And Jota he's just that level above. He's just got that certain creative X factor that we really cry out for. Great goal threat as well. Scores a goal from directly between the posts, like we often see Abada doing as well. So, great to have him back. Feels like he's never been away now.
Yeah, we have missed him because he's my favourite player to watch in the team because he has that wee bit of magic, that bit of trickery. But Celtic have scored a lot of goals without him domestically, and you're looking at going, look, Haksabanovic has been an able deputy. But look at, easy for me to say. I'm trying to look at it now with the two of them in there. Do we try and get one on each side? How does that work? Because they're definitely the two best wingers, and Haksabanovic is so versatile. He can play inside, he can play on the left. He's looked best on the left, but when Jota plays on the right, it doesn't work unless, again, we do the old... Another favourite of yours, Neil Lennon, and just switch them over when it's not working.
But they do that. They sort of do that in game anyway. I've noticed. It's not Ange. I suppose that's the difference. Maybe Ange gives them like free rein to swap or tells them mid game to swap. But that was Neil Lennon's tactic. That's kind of the difference, isn't it? Ange will switch the wingers. He's like, you just want to try the other side, or they'll make their own mind up. Neil Lennon's like, shit, right, okay. Right, switch the wingers, push the big red switch the wingers button and hope that saved the day.
That didn't work, get the centre half up top.
Yeah. If it was a swimming pool, the fullbacks are doing lengths and the wingers are doing widths, basically just crossing over each other every so often.
You mentioned the amount of goals we scored. I think the league record is ours from the Invincible season, 106 goals.
Yeah.
I think we've scored, I don't think I'm looking down at the screen just now, we've scored 42. We've scored 42 already. It's coming under the radar. No one seems to be mentioning it out with but the sort of media and the wider sports commentary act. Is that the word, Stephen? That we're scoring some amount of goals.
Yeah, it's just because it's sandwiched in between these Champions League games, and you get the sort of the different levels, and you take a beating or draw a game. But domestically, we had a couple of games we won 2-1, and we had the St Mirren game. But out with that, we're free scoring, and I think we've scored more goals than we had at this point in the Invincible season, and with Celtic out of Europe now as well, it's going to be full throttle after this World Cup. That it's just going to be domestic football. So if Celtic, looking at it last season, we scored so many goals January onwards. We've got that squad, plus added a lot of good players to it as well. We've also got guys like Jota coming back. Starfelt, the World Cup might be good for him to get his fitness up. So we've got so many options, so many good players. And guys like Abada, Maeda, Forrest, none of them being outstanding, but they're still contributing goals, and it's coming from all over the pitch. It's not as if it's just the strikers.
It could be a record-breaking season.
That's what I was going to say. Do you think we'll break
history makers, world record breaker?
Do you think we'll break the 106?
Yeah, I do. I think we'll get exactly 111 goals.
That's actually quite a lot of goals. No, it's just I just feel like this Celtic team just now, we're performing so well, and like Melly said, we're not doing so well in Europe, but we're kind of got one Champions League game left that we'll talk about. I just think there's not enough sort of credit being given to how quite impressive this Celtic team are domestically. And we go to Livingston, we beat them 3-0, nobody's really talking about it, but that was a team and a pitch that gave us problems in the past. And 3-0 was just like, we didn't slither 1-0 through the game. No. 3-0, completely standard performance, barely broke sweat, handled it, very professional, and then you go up the road with 3 goals and 3 points.
Off the back of European games, sandwich in between European games as well. So it was basically the perfect game, apart from Giacomakis' miss, because you get early goal in the second half that kills the game. You get to take off guys like O'Reilly and save them for the midweek. He's played a lot of football, but then you get Jota coming on as well. So perfect afternoon for the Hoops.
Stephen, Michael Myers sure is scary, but the last thing you need to be is hairy this Halloween. Luckily, our friends at Manscaped have launched their 4th generation performance package to make sure your pumpkins get the ultimate carving experience on this spooky day. Turn your bite-sized treat into king-sized candy and join 6 million men worldwide who trusted Manscaped. Go on to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code TIMS. Make the right call this spooky season. It's trick or trim.
Jamie, do you know what I used to do before Manscaped came along?
Broken bottles,
scissors, and or sometimes fire. It simply doesn't work. So thanks to Manscaped for finally coming along. Have you ever tried to trim your balls and it turned into a Freddy Krueger film? Well, luckily Manscaped is here to save the day and make sure you're feeling your best in your costume. Unlock your confidence with the Performance Package 4.0. Inside, you'll find the holy grail of men's grooming items. They've made it easy for you to upgrade your grooming routine. It's a full moon out and the werewolf in your pants is howling. It's time to tackle that problem with the Lawnmower 4.0.
Get 20% off with free shipping with the code TIMS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code TIMS, TIMS, at manscaped.com. Say trick or treat to beautiful new Halloweeny with Manscaped. Right, so we're leaving East Lothian. We're going to Madrid. It's West Lothian. I got a row for saying Mid Lothian. Somebody corrected me. That's so it's actually I can't remember. Anyway, we're going to Madrid. We were going to talk about the Champions League, but Stephen, what did you say prior to the cameras going on? Tell the listeners and viewers what you said.
Is this producer's notes here?
Yeah.
But it's becoming very, very hard to talk about these games because after the Real Madrid game, which we were all dead excited about and we were all quite happy with because despite the fact it was a defeat, quite proud of the way the team played. That has waned slightly because despite the fact you could apply that to all of the games so far, they have become almost identical now.
Yeah.
So every game since the Real Madrid game has been almost identical, not in terms of the goals conceded and the results, of course, with a couple of draws in there, but they have all come under the category of did okay, should have done better, should have taken chances, and now it's become almost impossible to talk about it. And we had yet another one against Shakhtar at home. Just a little bit flat now. I think it's just gotten to the point where everyone can feel that the Champions League is over. We're just kind of lumbering towards the finishing line. Could really be doing with it being over and done with now. I think that's how the Champions League feels now, which is an unfortunate position to be in because we were all buzzing about it for the first time in years. But it has very much petered out now.
Yeah, it's difficult because we did target those 4 games in between the Real Madrid games and only get 2 points, but there's things that you make your own luck a lot of time, but again, Leipzig sacking the manager. Why can you wait till after you played us, man? And then it turns out, oh, by the way, they're a cracking team. They can beat Real Madrid and all that. And Shakhtar maybe a bit better than we maybe thought with selling players and all that. But again, a very good, well-organised team who know what they're doing and have the ultimate X factor in Mudryk. So it's just one of those ones like, right, Celtic, could they have done better? Aye, a wee bit, but were the performances there? Yes, and I think that's a better gauge than anything in these games because you can go out with a whimper like another team, or you can go and try and impose your style. Celtic imposed their style, but just lacked that wee bit of quality and got shown up for what we are, a fourth pot team. And look, there's no shame in that for me in this one. We haven't got the points we maybe deserve, but just things haven't went away with Shakhtar getting Leipzig at the right time, us not getting the win against Shakhtar away from home when we should have, then Leipzig turning out to be a really good team. It's no falling for us, but...
Do you think we should have beaten Shakhtar home and away? Do you think we did with the performances? Would you look at those 2 results and go, actually, in the grand scheme of things, those are probably 2 disappointing results because we played well enough, created enough of chances. I think we can agree Real Madrid are just a much better team than us, so that was probably out of reach.
Slightly, aye.
Yeah, Leipzig, again, just a really good team, a really strong team in those games were pretty clearly out of reach for us. But the 2 Shakhtar games, there's not... I know we've got Mudryk, and they've got Mudryk, and we'll talk about him because there was some wild opinions online about how I don't think people really appreciate how good that guy is, to be honest with you. But I was looking at those games and going, do you know what? Probably should have beaten Shakhtar home and away. We created molding enough to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I think the first game's the killer because we don't get the result over there and it sort of sets the tone for the rest of the group because we're sort of chasing it then. I kept saying, look, if we get a win or 2 home games and get a couple of points away from home, but always said as well, hopefully we don't go into rue that game, and we definitely did because it meant from then Shakhtar had 4 points, Celtic had 1, and you're looking at, right, we need to beat them. And I think you've seen when the final whistle went, Shakhtar celebrating the 1 each draw there. It was a big result for them, but it's not just the drawing with Shakhtar, it's the fact that, right, Real Madrid didn't do their bit. They were meant to storm away with the group, but they dropped points to Shakhtar, they dropped points to Leipzig, and the chances of us getting anything off Real Madrid are slim. But for Leipzig to go and beat them 3-2, you're like, right, we were really up against it here.
I think I felt very strongly that we should have won the away game, right? I felt very disappointed after that with the amount of chances Celtic created. It was, to a certain extent, it was the same with the home one. I don't know if I could necessarily sit here and say, in the fullness of time, now that we're past those games, that we definitely should have won, because I think what we're dealing with, and you've already mentioned the name a couple of times, with Mudryk, we are up against this is probably the breakout. We're witnessing the breakout performances of a huge European star, coming a world star.
That goal he scored.
Now we've seen that twice as well. We've seen them play against Celtic on 2 occasions now, and I can't help but think, like, we're going to be looking back on this period in 2 or 3 years' time when he's playing for one of the European giants as the breakout season for this guy, and we just happen to get in his way at this point. And no,
we didn't even get in his way.
Well, Juranovic refused to get in his way, which is the emergence of this guy, and having seen how good he is and having seen how fast and skillful he is. It's why I wasn't really entertaining any notion that Juranovic should have just simply slid in and taken the ball off him, because it'll be very different. Of course, you could say that he should have challenge for that ball, and of course, if anyone doesn't know, I'm talking about the goal that they scored. There was a brief millisecond where Juranovic looked to be potentially favourite to get the ball, but then the guy's so quick. And when Melly and I discussed this on the aforementioned Breakfast of Champions, what I said, that going for a challenge like that, because of his speed and because of how dangerous it is and because of the position on the pitch it is, you are on the razor's edge of either making the best tackle in the game, the best tackle in Europe this season, right? You've saved the game by this 3-point snatching tackle, or you've got yourself sent off and you're the daftest bastard in the stadium, and everybody's blaming you for the defeat. So that's the margins we're dealing with when, in a split second, when you're trying to make the calculation, should I challenge this guy who's much faster than me, who's much better than me, who's already torched me for speed? Should he have gone for it? I don't know, but I'm just trying to present the kind of case for the defence, the literal defence in this occasion.
I thought Juranovic did a good job. I thought he kept up with pace. He was showing him on the outside. They get to the edge of the box. He comes in. Juranovic follows him in, but little does Juranovic know Carter Vickers is there, so they kind of get in each other's way. And that split second between Juranovic and Carter Vickers deciding who did what, he just rockets one into the back of the net, and you're thinking, he's the fastest kid alive.
He is. We've seen some fast players over the years at Celtic. I thought Mbappe was incredible, but I've never seen somebody so fast with the ball. It's incredible, the speed at which he can run with the ball, and the change of direction as well. We've seen him in the away game go on the outside and put it in with his left foot, a great finish. Then this one, he cuts him with his right foot and smashes it home as well. You're like, right, okay, where do we show him then? Where do we show him? And what Juranovic had to do for me was slow him up there and allow his defenders to get back. We done that, and he still manages to rifle one past.
Stickling on him, Melly. Let him know you're there. Is what you do. That's how you sort a guy like that.
Because there's people maybe like, take him out. Like, mate, nobody can get close to do it. And then seconds later, well, a few minutes later, for the worst miss of all time, Cameron Carter-Vickers is favourite for that ball for me. And he beats him to that. And that's the one guy you'd want to take him out, and he couldn't even do it.
See, that worst miss of all time, don't know if I'm buying it.
Yeah, it's one of them. But
it's one of them. I know that was like, people were, that's the worst miss I've ever seen.
I can see why he missed it. Weirdly.
I can see why he missed it, because one, let me see if we agree with this, right? Let's say, one, never in a million years is he thinking he's getting it squared to him. I don't think he's expecting it at all. He didn't. Did he? That wasn't a shot. That was just a bad touch.
Yeah, hands off him, doesn't it?
He sort of just took a bad touch and it got away from him. So if he tried to direct it into the back of the net and missed, I think that's what happened. But I think he thinks he's through. He's definitely going to take this on here. And the next thing you know, oh Christ, the ball's at my feet.
Chat it.
It looks to me as well where there's like a split second where he thinks the touch is enough. So in the time it takes for that ball to come across, which is fizzed in at him a wee bit, he probably thinks, all I need to do is touch it and it's over the line, and he does touch it, and then all of a sudden you see him changing his mind, and it just goes past. Although I was very, very grateful in the many discussions of the worst misses of all time. The same names always come up in the Van Vossen one, the Ronnie Rosenthal many years ago. That was the one that got posted. That was the one that got posted on Twitter where he missed from underneath the crossbar.
I think Maeda's had a worse miss than that. Did Maeda not miss one from about 3 yards out in against Madrid?
Oh no, it wasn't that close, was it?
Well, Maeda's had a pretty bad miss this season in the Champions League. One flashed into my memory banks.
Patrick Roberts against Rangers.
Oh,
years ago.
My God. Aye, Jesus Christ, they nearly never lived that down. But see, when you look at the list of players who've scored against us,
I think that's what happened to him now.
Yeah,
just
Where
such
is
a late
Patrick
reaction.
Roberts?
Sunderland.
is it?
Yeah.
He's like the Dundee of England, isn't it? Sunderland, basically. When you look at the list of players that scored against us this year, this is just off the top of my head, so you have to help me out, Melly. But if you look at what these guys have won in their combined transfer fees, or not their combined, but Mudryk basically won everything. Hazard, 100 odd million quid Real paid for him. Vinicius Junior, the most expensive under 18-year-old footballer of all time, or something. They paid an absolute fortune for him. Timo Werner, yeah, scored against us. Who's the other guy? Nkunku. Who's Mudryk. These guys are all football superstars.
About to be superstars or have been superstars for some time. Yeah,
like the Champions League is absolutely no joke.
There's probably quite a nice sort of parallel or quite nice comparison there as well between Modric, who has scored in maybe what you would think it's going to end eventually with Mudryk. One of his last seasons at the top, he scores at Celtic Park, and then Mudryk, who is also kind of emerging. So I'm not saying he's going to be anything like him. He's not going to be as successful as him. Who knows? But he is a guy who is emerging as potentially that level of talent as Modric goes out the other side of it.
A point completely made of nothing. I always thought Modric was like a Man U player that never played for Man U.
Yeah.
I always thought he kind of
tried to sign him.
Did they? He was always kind of fitted that mould. Real Madrid need to win, don't they? Or they want to win.
Yeah, they need to win to top the group. So great.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Look, Matt O'Reilly's confident. Matt O'Reilly said he thinks we can go and win. I think the encouraging thing about these Champions League performances is we've never looked out of our depth.
That's it.
And you don't want to go just to make up the numbers, because I saw an interview with Kieran Tierney on, I think it's called the Curry Club, the BT thing, and there's the podcast, which is the full version, and there's one on YouTube, which is the short version.
Don't you start Stephen on that. He has big problems with
that. Matt, because we are in the industry and all that, they use these microphones, right?
Don't plug them in.
Yeah, they don't plug them in. They just sit on the table and they're not plugged in, and it just fries my brain. I'm freaking out watching it.
I don't know. I know. And that's to the untrained eye, they won't realise that's not. But they've just got 3 mics on the table and none of them are plugged in. It's so bizarre. But he was talking about going into the Champions League with Brendan Rodgers and getting hammered, basically. And he was saying, as a player, you're there and you think, right, I just want to give it my best shot before you get into the tournament. We're there, right? We've qualified, cool. I want to give it my best shot. He goes, but when you're actually playing the games, you desperately don't want to just make up the numbers. And that's how I think the Celtic camp will be feeling. That's how the manager will be feeling. That's how the players will be feeling. They desperately don't just want to be there making up the numbers. They want to make their mark on it. And that's probably the most disappointing aspect for me. Like, I'm not writing off Celtic's ability to go to the Bernabeu and beat Real Madrid. It's obviously a huge long shot, but you want them to make their mark in some way in this tournament, don't you? Yeah,
what we're looking for from Celtic is players to come in and either be good Celtic players and stay with the club, or be really good Celtic players and leave the club and make us a lot of money so we can reinvest that. And look, our team's going to look at Celtic players playing the way Rangers do and sit in and get absolutely pumped, or are they going to look at players and look at the way Celtic play and went, you know what, these guys tried to play that. Matt O'Reilly got given the UEFA Man of the Match by a technical director at UEFA there, so they see something in him as well. But neutrals watching the game see a very good player there. That's what you want. You don't want to see.
Was he playing League One 12 months ago?
Yeah.
And now he's playing in the Bernabeu and picking up man of the matches in the Champions League.
Yeah, in League One.
In an unnatural position for him as well.
Yeah, it's looked tremendous. And if you're playing there, you want to play like Celtic to play like Livingston and just launch the ball up so Matt O'Reilly's got a sore neck by the end of it. No, you want Celtic to go and play their game. And look, Celtic can go and play their game on Wednesday night, play really well and get pumped like they did at Celtic Park. There's no shame in that. But what's the alternative? We've spoke about this, and if the players are going to improve, they need to be uncomfortable. Ange says they have to go out there, be uncomfortable and learn from it and start to get comfortable in this environment. Are we going to learn anything from standing in a back 5 with 4 in front of that, launching up to Giacomakis? No, we're not. We're going to learn if we play a game, all right, I've got this amount of time on the ball. If I don't move the ball this quickly, it's all about improving the speed of play, the speed of thought. It's not about shelling balls up and hoping for the best.
I saw something last week in relation to this game, and someone asked Ange a question. And no particular beef with the person that asked the question. They were saying, Celtic fans might look at the table and be disheartened about how the Champions League's panned out. And I kind of thought, disheartened doesn't really sum up how I feel about this. I'm actually I'm actually quite proud about how
I'm
Ange's
very proud.
I'm very proud about how Ange's approached this tournament. He has went out. He's imposed his own style, and by doing that, we've created lots of chances. We've never looked out of our depth. We've not won. We've not progressed. But for me, that is much better than what Melly's saying. Changing your style, throwing everything that you've been everything that you preach, you just throw it right in the bin. Try and play a completely different way, and then you end up the national embarrassment like Rangers.
It's still one game to play as well. Although shows what you know, they've still got a chance of qualification.
Do they?
They've got the last laugh there. If they simply go out and beat Ajax by 5 clear goals, they will qualify for the Europa League. It just see on the
knowing their luck though.
Ajax will turn up with more points than us if they win.
Ajax will turn up with a B squad, 3 players sent off, all this sort of nonsense.
But on the state of the group, on the situation that the group has found itself in, it just shows you, like, you do all these plannings in your head and all that. You think, right, win the home games and all that, and then even something you think you can bank on, like Real Madrid, are just going to steamroller everyone. They're just going to sail straight through into the next round. By the time we play them, they're going to have already qualified. Maybe even they'll play the kids and all that. They're just going to beat. Hopefully, they help us out and beat all the rest of them, and they haven't even done that. So there's been a little bit of criticism for the idea that Celtic needed results to go their way elsewhere in order to try and qualify. This was, when Real Madrid drew with Shakhtar, that basically put Celtic out. People were saying, like, imagine needing results elsewhere instead of like taking it into your own hands and all that.
Don't know where he finds these comments.
They were common, to be fair, don't they?
But that's always going to happen. It's a 6-game group. We're always going to need results to go away elsewhere, unless we are going to be the team that goes in and wins 6 games, which is never going to happen. Then that's how a group works. We're always going to need another team to beat our rivals. It's the same with a league table. A league table, we're always going to need the other team to drop points. Especially
when you've got Real Madrid and Leipzig in your team, in your group, especially when you've got these enormously difficult teams. Just to finish up then, what does Celtic need to do? So we're out of the Champions League, we're out of Europe altogether, they're having the post-mortem, and Ange Postecoglou has 3 things that he wants, or his priorities for making an impact in this tournament when we qualify again next season. What do you think his priorities are? Good question, huh?
Better players, mate. Better players. Clean the whole thing out. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to properly analyse that, because it's going to take a lot, to be honest. What you also need as well, and this isn't particularly insightful or analytical or anything, we might just need a better draw. We might need a so-called easier draw.
We thought this was a good one, didn't we?
And those are hard to come by in the Champions League. They don't. Not that many groups come out where you think, oh, do you know what, we'd coast through that. It's a very, very tough environment to play in, as we've found out, because we were all very confident going into this. And despite the fact that others will, right, but I can't bring myself to necessarily criticise this Celtic team for not sailing through this group at the first time of asking. It's a personal choice. If you don't agree with that, that's absolutely fine. But I just think it's very, very difficult. And one thing we need to do is hopefully qualify a number of times in a row, because all the other examples that people give, see Club Brugge and all that, right, why can we not just do what they did? That's going to take time. That's going to take 3 or 4 years of constant qualification, better player trading models, better recruitment, better everything, really. So I can't really... It's very hard to look at it from this angle and think, what can this team do differently next time around? The truth is probably quite a lot.
Well, you're bang on, because I don't know how you would frame it as such, right? But there's like below the line and above the line. So above the line is everything on the pitch, and below the line is everything that happens in the background. And like F1 teams, they're successful because they spend so much money on like better engineers and better aerodynamics and all this stuff that happens before they actually furry dice and petrol and all that, before they actually tyres, before they actually MOTs, before they hit the tarmac. There's all the work's done. And I think that's one of Ange's priorities is going to be, right, we're bringing in all this money for the Champions League. We need to improve what goes on back here. So I need to be able to bring in better coaches, better technical assistants, better staff. We need to put infrastructure in place. I think another one of his priorities, Melly, and this will probably be his top priority, is you need to keep the core of this team together. There is no point doing one and done. There's no point doing all this hard work to get into the Champions League, and then in the summer Matt O'Reilly goes, Carter Vickers goes, Jota goes, and then he needs to start all over again, because that is the fast train to nowhere. Yeah,
but that's a difficult thing. Celtic, the way we are, teams are going to notice our players, and the way we've been playing, like, we've got technically good players, so if you take them out of Celtic, you can see how they fit in there. this is why playing like this is going to benefit Celtic in the long run. But keeping these players, it's going to be very difficult. I think that maybe the only thing that will get these players to stay at Celtic is the fact that we haven't done really well in the Champions League. Might be the thing that gets Ange Postecoglou to stay at Celtic. And
more money and better wages. I mean, that's another thing. If we're bringing in the money, we can maybe afford to pay them a bit more,
Yeah, if we can keep them, that'd be great. But
I think that's imperative. I need to. I don't know if it'd be so disheartening. Do you know what would be disheartening for me? To get to the summer and watch this team that Ange has built go so far and it just has to start all over again. I don't even know if the manager could take that.
Well, that's football, innit? It's football at this level. It's happened to Celtic a lot. Like, a year ago, we were looking at Edward, Christie and Ayer leaving, but we've barely spoke about them since because we've brought in Kyogo, Jota and all that. So, look, players are out there. It's about Celtic being prepared for once, and I think that's what we can do is better preparation. Hearing Celtic bring in players at the end of October for a January window, I'm like, we're still playing the Champions League. What's going on here?
Yeah.
So things like this are what we can do. We can be better prepared. We can bring in better players because I think with this Champions League money we've got in, Celtic maybe haven't brought in players that are of massive better quality, but the squad is of much, much better quality, and that's what you can do. You can bring in players of better quality and have more than 10 or 11. We've got like 16 players who you could really say any given week, they start. So bringing in a better squad and being able to prepare more.
The reason I've been quite relaxed about it, the Champions League this year, and again, I get excited about it and I get disappointed with the results at the time, but I'm speaking more broadly now that it's over. The reason I've been quite relaxed about it is because the Celtic support as a whole really have been complaining about the Peter Lawwell reign for 20 years or whatever it was, just rounding up, and the fact that we just didn't do enough in Europe, didn't do it. So I just don't think that the 15, 17, 18 years of damage is maybe a strong word, but it could be the right word to use here, is going to be solved by just having Ange and friends in the background. I just don't think
Ange has actually said as much, hasn't he? Yeah, somebody made a comment a couple of months back about the framework behind him, and he says, well, that's what I'm here to do as well, remember?
Well, that's it exactly, because I think it's quite common in football. I think we all focus on things like transfer fees quite a lot. So when you look at a team like Red Bull, right, what can they spend on such and such a right back, whatever it is? But see, quite often when you're talking about the differences between clubs at that level, transfer fees is one of the least important things. Salary comes into it as well. But what these clubs have that Celtic don't is enormous time-proven investment in infrastructure and building a club and putting everything in place that's going to be geared towards becoming a successful Champions League regular club. Celtic don't have that at all. Celtic have qualified this year because we've got good players and a good manager, but behind that there's absolutely nothing. But we've done well with the resources that Celtic have and should have done better over a number of years. So that's why I'm not being too downhearted about this campaign. I think we're at the start of something. It's going to be very difficult to build on it because of all the various difficulties and bringing players to and keeping them in Scotland for any length of time before the big guns, the big rich guns come looking. But that overall, I think we've done all right. But there are so many obstacles out there between Celtic and becoming a Champions League regular.
Before we wrap up, what is unusual about the referee at tomorrow's game at the Bernabeu? Any guesses, Mel? You want to
competent?
Yeah, well, probably, yeah.
Is it female?
It is. It's a female referee at the Bernabeu.
PC gone mad.
Stephen is fuming at that.
What's next? No, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Who was it? Was that what Keys and Gray? Did they not have some obnoxious comment about a female referee? At the end of the day, it was just banter. And on that bombshell, we will wrap up. Thank you so much to everyone who listens and watches us. Thanks especially to those who support us on Patreon. If you would like additional content from us, if you want to join a great Celtic supporting community, you can join us at patreon.com/20minutetims, or if you just want to help us in another way, subscribe to us on YouTube. Thanks for watching and listening.